Welcome to the Real Life Momz podcast. It is time to take a break from all our to-dos and carve out this time to focus on ourselves. I'm Lisa Foster, your host, and today I'm here with fellow mom and personal development coach Whitney Browning. And Whitney's here to help us identify who we want to be and what we want out of life, which is easy topic, easy topic. So, hi Whitney, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. I feel like this question, it's funny because it plays a lot. I feel like it's out there a lot in the mom world. Like, who do you want to be? What do you want? Yeah, it's like, I don't know about you, but like when someone asks me that, I get a lot of angst. It's like there's a lot of emotions that's around it. It's not an easy question, which seems like it should be. So, like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing that pops to mind is that through motherhood, I feel like there's a lot that like you don't know until you're in it. And so we go into motherhood feeling like we have this idea of what it should look like, what it's going to be, what we want it to be. And then we get into it and the daily grind just kind of like takes over and you just start doing it however you can to kind of survive it. And then at some point, sometimes we pause for a second and go, what am I doing? Sometimes we don't even get to that point and we just get through 18 years of survival mode. And then at the end, we go, whoa, okay, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? So I think there's kind of that piece to start with of like, even going into it, like, how do we even begin to think about who we are, how we want to show up as a mom, as an individual? Kind of taking that time for even exploring the subject, I think, is sometimes even the very beginning of it. Like where we have to start is setting aside that time to kind of explore those things and then getting into how do we explore it? What does that look like? What do we want it to be? And then fitting that in to what we're actually living.
So that definitely gets me into like, all right, like how do we start identifying who it is that we want to be?
And like I said before, I think a lot of the time we come into it with it should be one way or another, or we have preconceptions of what we've seen or what we have seen that we don't want to do and things like that. But mom life doesn't come with a manual or a outline of this is how it's supposed to go. Everyone's life is different, right? So we need an approach that can figure that out for us. Like if I'm not going to be the same as the mom next to me here and the mom next to me there and the mom over there, then how am I supposed to navigate this? How am I supposed to figure out how I'm supposed to show up, right? And so one of the things that I do with my clients is we focus a lot on personal values, personal strengths, really looking at who is the core of who you are before motherhood, during motherhood? How do you want to show up in the future? What are the ideas that you do have currently about motherhood and what it should look like? And are they in alignment with who you really are at your core, with your personal values? And kind of starting at that place of what is it and what does it look like right now? For better, for worse, indifferent. What does motherhood look like for you in this moment, in this time? And then really looking at what do you want it to look like? And like I said, that's going to look different for different moms. And so approaching it from that really personal place is where it has to begin. Because for one mom who's a working mom who wants to focus on career and have the family life, that's going to look very different than someone who's like, I want to be stay-at-home mom and that's where all of my energy is. And for someone who's in the middle and works part-time or this or that, like it's going to look different. And what you want that to be, everybody in any of those scenarios wants to live a happy life, right? And we all want to live a life that feels good and feels in alignment with who we are. So by exploring kind of who we are, we can then fit into feeling good about it.
And that's such personal work. And you're right, because exactly, there's no manual. There's no manual because there's no manual, right? There's no way you can write a manual for each individual, right? We're all just our own person with our own backgrounds, our own stories, and our own values, right? So it is going to look different. And that's where we have to like not look at the next mom and say, wow, she did all this or did all that. We can be inspired by them. We can take pointers by them, but we definitely can't compare because no two people are exactly the same and no kids are exactly the same either. We all have our own identity and personality. But I love the fact of like going back to your core values. And I've been on this podcast for a while and I hear that a lot. Like, like go back to your core values. What brings you happiness? What brings you joy? Sometimes that's hard to find. right? Like that is because we are in this like whirlwind of parenthood and we're very different, I think. Like I'm in my 50s now. I'm so different when I entered parenthood to now I'm like I'm obviously always going to be a mom, but my kids are getting older, right? So they're starting to maybe flock a little outside the nest here. And I'm such a different person. So even like my core values, like I feel like some of those have even changed. So, are there even just tools and strategies to kind of dive deep into that to help a parent maybe start on that journey if they feel a little lost?
Yeah, I think two things popped up to me as you were speaking to that. First, being that there's going to be seasons of motherhood, there's going to be phases of it, and that how we show up in those phases is probably going to be different. We're going to have different things that we want out of it. When our littles are really little, like for me, it was I wanted that snuggle time. I wanted to be there. I wanted to hold them. And they were my world at that time. As they've gotten older and into school and have more independence, like I'm loving that I get some independence back too. And I get to go and explore this side of my life a little bit more than I could when they were little babies. And as they get older, that I look forward to what my life is going to look like as an empty nester and what my husband and I will do and what that phase of motherhood looks like. Where am I going to live based on what my kids have going on and things like that. So still always at each phase being able to explore what you want that phase to look like. It doesn't have to be you are the same human through this whole experience. Like it has to be the same at every step. So I think acknowledging and recognizing that it's going to be different along the way and keeping that concept of exploration throughout all of it, keeping in mind this is not a I do it once, figure out what my life's going to look like, and it's like that forever. Like, no, it is going to be changing and finding at each phase what does that look like for you. So the second thing that popped up for me as you were asking is where do we begin? How do we explore that? How do we figure out what that looks like for us at each phase or all the way along? And one of the places I love to start, especially because as moms, me time comes up so much. It's such a buzzword. And that's such a concrete example of how hard it can be to be like, I don't even know where to begin. Like, what do you mean me time? Like, I don't, I've got so much else going on. How do you want me to even think about myself and what I want to do for me? And one of the tools I really love for that piece of it comes from a book called Designing Your Life. And in that book, it talks about the concept of play and talks about it in terms of like think back to when you were a kid and you're on the playground and you're just having fun. You're just playing and being free and creative and that space of mind where you can just run and just have fun and like that feeling of being in that space. And what brings you that kind of joy in your life right now? What brings you that space where you just get to show up as you so authentically, just fun and joyful, and you walk away from it like, yeah, I'm going back into class, but man, that game of tag was awesome, or whatever. So, as a mom, like, what does that bring up? For some people, it may be kind of the stereotypical, like a bubble bath, reading a book, those kinds of things. For me, I was like, I don't have hobbies. Like I'm a mom. I don't go do stuff for myself. Was my hobby being soccer mom? I don't know. That seems weird. And I didn't have anything that was like, I'm not the typical like bubble bath kind of person. So maybe getting like a pedicure now and then, but like that felt like sometimes it was more stressful than it was worth, like trying to figure that out. And so, really, again, going back to what is that core value for you, what things are important to you and really meaningful, and tying it in with that experience of fun and joy. And for me, it was things like being with friends or family and eating good food. I am such a foodie and didn't even realize it. And so for me, it was like if I build into my time a date night with my husband once a month or lunch with a friend every other week or things like that, like that's my me time. That's where I get rejuvenated, where I find that joy in my day. And so thinking a little bit outside the box. What brings you to that space where you come back feeling good and feeling fueled and ready to keep moving forward with the laundry and the dishes and the school drop-offs and pickups and all of that stuff. So me time doesn't have to be a bubble bath. It can be lunch with a friend. It can be taking a walk. It can be just whatever it is that brings you that kind of like feeling of joy and energy and something kind of fueling for your soul in a sense. And it doesn't have to be alone, it can be connecting with someone.
Yeah. And I love that you said going back to things could be like in progress, we can change. Like even the things that bring us joy can change too, right? So I love that because it is true when I think about this kind of work. Okay, who do I want to be? Like, oh my God, it's like has to decide for the rest of my life. But I love how you put it into who do I want to be now should be the question, right? Not who do I want
Absolutely.
to be forever. So I love that. And I think of that with like joy stuff too, because for me, it's learning, which I never would have really put together actually. They always talk about the kid on the playground. What'd you like to do? And I'm like, well, I used to like to make up dances, and I do not want to do that anymore. But
Yes.
it's like what I think. Like, I was like, oh my God. And you're right. I don't have hobbies. I've lost all my hobbies. My hobbies become what my kids liked. Like, I'm a mess, right? But what I realize is I love learning. So whether it's like on this podcast and learning from you that like brings me so much excitement and joy, I will always have an audiobook in my ear probably all the time. And it's like always a self-help one. So people are always like,
Yeah.
what are you listening to? And they think it's some great story. I'm like, oh no, it's like the Atomic Habits. I
Yes.
love
I
the
love Atomic
self
Habits.
help stuff, right? But that brings me so much joy. So that brings me the excitement of dancing that I felt. So I guess it's the feeling. It's that feeling that I get from that thing that brings me joy. And so, yeah, it could be anything. And I also have to point out, like you said, it doesn't have to be an alone thing, right? Because I feel like that's also me time becomes this thing of I must be by myself
Yes.
somewhere, right? But that doesn't mean that's exactly what you needed, right? Just going for a walk with a friend is like also one of my favorite things that bring joy, or coffee or something like that is yeah, much more lifting for me and refueling than probably anything else that yeah, I don't do bubble baths. That would bring me angst.
Absolutely. Well, and that's something too that another piece of what I work with clients on is that piece of how do we fit it into our lives? How do we take this vision of, okay, now I know who I want to be, how I want to show up, what I want my life to look like, but how do I actually make that a thing? And part of it, like you said, with the concept of it doesn't have to be alone. Like if me time sometimes for me is like being really intentional with the time I spend with my kids. Sometimes that fueling energy comes from really choosing to sit down and play a board game with my son or something like that where I am 100% here with you. It's that connection piece that when I go to lunch with a friend or have a date night with my husband, sitting playing a board game with my son can have that same energizing factor for me. And that's not something I have to take away from time with my family to do. I can do it with them in the midst of motherhood and everything that we have going on. If I have a Friday evening to sit down and we all watch a show together or something, I love all the cooking competition shows. And Is It Cake is like the big one. Sitting down and having that family time together and connecting in that way sometimes is all that it takes. And that's not something that I have to fit into my schedule in a different way. We're already there, we're already together. It's just about being intentional about making sure that it's connecting to my values and how I want it all to look.
And it kind of brings me back to look at the feeling that you
Yeah.
feel like that, going back to that, finding those things that are joyful for you, right? That feeling, because I think sometimes we have to do certain things because that's what the society says would give you that feeling. For instance, okay, I'm going to be really upfront here and sorry to my husband who I love. We love The Bachelor, both of us. We love watching it weekly. Okay, it's a TV show and people say you can't connect over that, but like we can. We love it. It's like Monday night, we're super excited and we're like, do we like Grant? Do we not like Grant? I don't even know if I like who was Grant. That's The Bachelor now. I didn't even know he was on the other episodes. But we just love it so much. And we sit there and we talk about it. And my husband always will cheat and look up who won. And then we have a fight because I don't want to know who won. But it's fun. But if someone were to think about a traditional connection, right? They wouldn't say, okay, watch The Bachelor on Monday, right? Like that when that's like our date night, right? And that really works for us. It's really fun for us. So I think like going back to pushing aside of what the expectation of what you should be doing, I think is huge. And then just really thinking about, does this bring me that feeling that really fills me?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you totally nailed it. It's really about that concept of like going back to talking about motherhood doesn't come with a manual. And so a lot of my coaching program is not about I'm going to make motherhood easy in any way, but it is about kind of making it simple and breaking it down to these elements that are really tangible. And for a mom who's just in the daily grind and relationship is struggling or whatever, like it may be as simple as like taking a pause to be like, how can I connect with my kids, with my husband, with my friends, or what can I do that already is kind of in my world of ability to take that first step toward finding that moment of joy, finding that refueling space so that you don't burn out in motherhood, you don't get resentful, you don't feel as overwhelmed. We need that balance of finding those joyful times, those play times, and balancing that with all the other stuff that we have to do. There's,
Mhm.
I talk a lot about there's have to do's, need to do's, and want to do's. The have to do's are you have to feed your kids, you have to feed yourself, you have to sleep, you have to, there's things we have to do in life. The things that we need to do are the things that will move us toward the goals that we have. And so setting manageable goals, meaningful goals, and working toward them, there's going to be things we need to do. If we don't end up doing them, our world isn't going to fall apart, but we're not going to progress toward the bigger goals that we have. But then we also have to fit in those want to do's. We have to fit in that balance of time of the joy and the fun and all of that too.
So let's go move into like fitting in because I know you do a lot of time management stuff. And I feel like the want to do's, like if we have a to-do list, right? The want to do's are usually far below on the to-do list and they tend to fall off a lot. So how do we fit in all the wants, needs, and have to's?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And it's where I love to spend time in. So let's chat about it. So my big thing is that, yeah, as moms, we have all of these have to do's. We have to plan meals, we have to do laundry, we have to do dishes, we have to, for some, have to work, we have to do kid drop-offs, pickups, all of the things that we have to do. So, and then how do we fit in the need to do's if we want to achieve bigger goals? And then, yeah, at the end of the day, those want to do's often fall off. So, one little piece of it is that element of being able to kind of look at what it is that you are doing already and how can we shift some of those things to maybe cross over a little bit. Maybe some of the need to do's, the goals that you have that you're working toward, also cross over with some of the want to do's, the things that bring you joy. Maybe some of the things you have to do, you can find ways to structure them in a way that bring you some of that joy. So there is a little bit of opportunity sometimes to be able to mold some of those things together a little bit so they hit two categories and you're not just always feeling like you're just having to do all of these things. I know a lot of time in personal development stuff, they talk about shifting your mindset from a space of I have to do the dishes to I want to do the dishes or I have to do the laundry. I want to do the laundry so that we have clean clothes to wear or whatever. And it's silly, but it's also simple and it does on some level work. But at the end of the day, if you're overwhelmed by the laundry, you're gonna be like, no, I don't want to do the laundry. So the big thing that I work on with clients in that space is to take all of those have to do's that are in the forefront of our mind, taking up that space. Okay, what's going to be for dinner tonight? What am I need to cook? Do I need to go to the store? I have to do this laundry. Oh, the thing just buzzed. I need to go change over the load. Oh, wait, my kid has to be picked up in 10 minutes. Like that's all here floating around, causing that chaos feel and that overwhelm on a daily basis. So let's take those things and create some systems around them, some routines, some structure, some planning, taking a little bit of time to plan ahead in a way that, okay, I've got meals planned out for this week. Even if it's not this day, this time, these things, I've at least got a list of like 5 dinners that we can do. And they are varying degrees depending on what comes up that night. But at least I don't have to sit down and think about it every single day. I've got a little bit of plan so that in those moments of dinner, okay, I'm going to pick this one, I'm going to do this thing. So kind of taking those things and putting them into more of an automation space, which shifts into a different place in our brain. When we shift them into a routine that then becomes automated, we can get them out of that frontal space where we're trying to think about all of the things and we put them on autopilot. We already have so many things in our life that we are doing on autopilot, whether we recognize it or not. And so figuring out which ones we can actually like take advantage of, like let's put the laundry on autopilot. For me, I've got a routine. I know each day of the week what load of laundry I'm doing, and I just kind of do it. It just
Mhm.
flows now. And I don't have that mountain of laundry that used to stressed me out in the background, constantly nagging in the back of my mind that needed to be dealt with. So taking something like that and shifting it into an automated space where I just get up, I throw this load of laundry in, I move on, and I'm on with my day. And I don't have to think about the laundry again until tomorrow. And I know what I'm going to do then. So that's on automation too. And then the next day, the next day. So taking that out of that frontal space then frees up that space to think about what are my bigger goals. Now that I've kind of got these things on automation and I've got a little bit of time because I know that this is getting taken care of, what do I want to do with it? And so having that mental space and energy and time all is a big factor in being able to move forward with it. And then we get into strategic scheduling and things like that, to really like nail it down with time management and time blocking and all of that too.
I think back in my education, it was like I was in PT school, and my one of my teachers was like, you just need the 5 Ps. Prior planning prevents poor performance. And I like it stuck with me till now. Like it's been like over, 30 years. And it's so true. Yeah, that planning that I'm just going to do this and it just happens makes it so much easier. And yeah, it gets rid of all those like anxiety pieces and leaves resources open to do other things. I also recently saw, I think it was on Instagram, and I did try it. It was actually pretty cool for those who don't like meal planning, like myself. But you could put in chat, I want to make 4 dinners for 4 people. I want to spend, $60. I'm going to Trader Joe's. Give me a list. And it gives you the grocery list and the meals all right there. And I was like, this is pretty awesome. So there you go,
Yeah,
right? You can even do that. Yes.
great
Oh,
tool. I love stepping into that world of technology and being able to use it to our advantage for sure.
now tell me a little bit about this strategic blocking time because I do love the concept of blocking time. I think that's been really helpful in my own life. So yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I also am a huge fan of time blocking and building in what I call strategic scheduling as well. So, this idea of time blocking. So, you have your calendar for the day or for the week or whatever. And so, a lot of the time as moms, we're used to like, okay, I have my calendar and I plug in an appointment for, dentist appointment for the kid, a doctor's appointment for me. Like, and so that's kind of a starting point of like, if you know nothing about time blocking and you're doing that, you're already kind of doing a tiny piece of it, right? Because you're using your calendar and you're putting something in its time and place, right? So then it's about expanding that into all of the other things in your life. So, what else can you put on your calendar and kind of time block for? So, whether that's something like not just an appointment, but maybe the way that you're going to spend your afternoon with your kid, if it's going to be playing that board game, or kind of what things can you kind of put in there that essentially, like you said, kind of planning them out a little bit and then building that in also with the need tos, the want tos. So the things that you need to do to achieve your goals, like let's get those on your calendar, time block for those things, the action steps that you need to take today, tomorrow, next week, next month, that's going to build to that bigger goal. Find the time and actually put it on your calendar, schedule it instead of just saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna, do this thing sometime this week. No, okay, do it Tuesday at 10 a.m. That's going to be, the time that you've scheduled to do it. So finding a time and place for those things. Similarly, the want to do's, like if it's, whatever it is that's going to bring you that time for joy and fun, schedule that too. That's just as important, like we said, about keeping that balance of life. If you're only scheduling time for the things that you have to do and maybe the things that you want to do, but you're not scheduling in the things and maybe the things you need to do. If you're not scheduling in the time for the things you want to do, then it's really easy for them to get pushed off that list of priorities. When you have a list of priorities and it's not actually on your calendar scheduled for a particular time, it's so easy for them to just disappear. So we want to create time and space for those things too. And then with all of that, I bring in the strategic scheduling piece in terms of great, let's put these things on your calendar. But then, like, are you really gonna do the thing you said you were gonna do at, in the morning, but you're actually a night person? Don't just put it on your calendar because you were told to put it on your calendar. Oh, I'm time blocking. Well, okay, when that time actually comes around, are you really actually gonna do it at that time? Yes or no? So let's be strategic about it. Think about, again, going back to who are you? How do you show up as your best self? If you're a morning person, like, yeah, let's schedule in those things in the morning and like when your juices are flowing and all of that and make those things happen then. And then later in the day, you can do the autopilot stuff of the laundry and the whatever. If you're a night person, like when you roll out of bed in the morning and you're like, I barely can get my coffee together, like go push start on laundry because you set the load to go last night when you had the energy and the thought for it. Like in the morning, you just push it to start and then you can roll through your day with it. So, really thinking about the things that you're doing and when you're going to do them your best and trying to fit them in that way. And through all of it, I am a huge proponent of staying flexible. So, as much as I am all about time block, get it scheduled, make it happen, there is also, you can schedule best laid plans, right? Best laid plans are the ones that fall apart the first. So, laying it out like that also gives you opportunities to see where the spaces are in your schedule, where you have nothing scheduled. And that's some of my favorite time is because it gives you that flexibility of like, hey, I planned to go do this thing at this time. But you know what? My kid just threw up and the dog just ran out the front door. And like, now I'm going to spend the next hour trying to manage the chaos of these two situations. And there's no way I'm going to, get to the grocery store now, kind of a thing. So then being able to go, that's okay. Like, it's okay. I don't have to like lose my whole day over this because now my schedule is completely thrown off and I didn't stick to it. No, you take what that thing was and you go, okay, here's the next space on my calendar. I can do it later this afternoon, or I can do it tomorrow morning, or I can do it, wherever it is, I can shift it to tomorrow. I can go shopping then. That's fine. And so being able to have that flexibility of having a structure that can move with the chaos of mom life essentially and be able to allow you to shift as you need to. And I do always caveat that with if you end up shifting something too many times, you should probably look at what is causing that shift to happen and figure out, is it something that you really don't want to do, or maybe it's something that you just need to break down into a smaller step that you can actually start with. A lot of the time it's like, yeah, I'm going to sit down and write this first chapter of a book that I want to do. And that keeps getting pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. And it's like, okay, well, what if you just sat down and came up with an outline? Or what if you just sat down and brainstormed on the book overall, or things like that, where it's like break it down into something that actually, like, let's make that the step that you put on your calendar instead. So breaking down action steps into like really tangible, I could do that tomorrow. I just need to know what time I'm going to do it. And then putting that on your calendar in a strategic way so that it actually gets done. And we're not just having an endless to-do list in the back of our mind, overwhelming us constantly. Put it on your calendar, then you know when you're going to do it, and you don't have to think about it until you get to that time. Again, freeing up that mental space for what you're actually doing in this moment.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh, freeing up the space because it's out of your head of all these things you have to do. And what I've noticed is that I'm more efficient, obviously, with getting things done. And I always like to check those things off. That always makes me feel good. But I'm also more in the moment with my things because I'm not like thinking about multiple things. If I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be there. I'm in the moment with it. It's getting my full attention. And then when that time is up, then I can move on to the next thing versus being at one thing, but also thinking about how am I going to who's going to pick up the kid and who's going to do this and how am I going to answer these? I still have to answer all those emails, whatever it is. Then I'm all over the place. So I don't get my thing done anyway. And I'm not even in the moment or enjoying what I'm supposed to be doing anyway. Nobody's getting my best me. So I think when I'm time blocking, I feel like I'm really where I should be. And I know that I have time for the other things too.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly how it ties back into that first piece of like, how do you want to show up? Do you want to show up in the world as the mom who's overwhelmed, burnt out, frazzled, jumping from one thing to the next, putting out fires left and right because it's all just chaos? Or do you want to show up as the mom who's more balanced, like we talked about, and has a little bit more of a strategic approach that feels a little more joyful and a little more possible? A lot of the time, mom life can feel so overwhelming. And like I said, you get to that point of burnout and resentment about things. And all it can sometimes need is that little bit of being like strategic with it, setting up some systems, having some tools to be able to kind of tackle it along the way and allow you to show up more intentional, more purposeful, more attentive, like you said, and be, really actually get to live your life instead of just kind of floating through it.
Exactly. So, what is one piece of advice you want to give a mom, especially a mom who feels just kind of overwhelmed? What would you want to tell them to do?
I think the biggest thing is just to let them know that there is another way, that it is possible to live your life as a mom and as an individual in a way that feels good and that feels possible and feels successful. And it's not going to be easy, like I said, but we can make it a little more simple and a little more doable and a little more fun, and to not feel like you have to be stuck in the chaos or in the overwhelm, that there is another way. And all it takes is finding a personal development book, finding a coach, finding a program, finding something that can help give you those tools. But my advice would be just know that these things exist, that it is possible, and it's possible for every mom. You know, no matter how deep you feel in it, there are some little steps you can take to work toward a happier place,
Yeah.
a simpler place where you can thrive instead of survive.
Yeah. And that's such a good point. Like there is this stuff now. We're like so lucky because there are books, there's coaches, there's people like yourself, right? So we didn't always have that, but now we do. So with that said, where can the listeners find you and what do you have to offer?
Yeah, my exciting place that I'm at right now, with kind of gathering moms, is I opened up a Facebook group that is a space for moms to come and connect, get some information from me along the way. Through that, I also am hosting Tuesday Zoom calls that are like a place to come and connect, find support, take, 1 hour out of your day to just come and be in a space that will kind of, inspire you, empower you, support you to go forth in the rest of your week and live your best mom life. So I absolutely would invite anybody who's interested to come join that group, to come hop on the Zoom. I am also on Instagram, so I can be found there as well. Excited to just have more moms find the connection and support that they deserve.
Great. And I'll have links to where can actually the listeners link to you?
So easiest place is Instagram, Whitney
Okay.
B Coaching, and in the Facebook group, Mastering Mom Life. So the group is Busy Moms Balancing Life. And yeah, those are the two best places to find me at this time.
Is there anything else you want moms to know or start doing today?
I think first thing to start doing today would just be to take 2 minutes and think to yourself, where can I find a little joy in my day? Where can I find something that's going to energize me? And just start there. Start with that piece of it, of where can you spark that joy for yourself, and start bringing that piece of balance into life. And then the rest can build from there.
That's such a great first step. And well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your mom knowledge and experience with us and kind of coaching us through how to identify who we want to be.
Thank you for having me and letting me share. It was exciting to be here.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Whitney gave us so many great tips and tools that we can learn on our journey to identifying who we want to be and how we want to show up in the world. And if you want to learn more about Whitney or connect with her or join her Facebook group, just click on the link in the show notes. And before we go today, I want to share one more incredible resource with you. Hey, moms, if you're finding it challenging to connect with your teen or tween, I've got something that can help. Dr. Melanie McNally is a licensed clinical psychologist and life coach for Gen Zers and has created a free guide titled 5 Ways to Engage with Your Teen or Tween. This quick 8-page guide offers proven methods to help you reconnect and communicate more effectively with your child. So to get this free guide, just click on the link in the show notes and go to destinationu.net/communicate. It's time to make connecting with your child easy and fun again. So grab the link in the show notes and go to destinationu.net/communicate and start connecting with your child today. Thanks again for joining me for this episode. And until next week, keep carving out time for yourselves and keep putting yourself on top of your to-do list.